Ways of Living is a dance theatre happening, site-specific work, which is commissioned by the Fringe, and it looks at a group of drag artists living together and making work and being creative. It reflects the groups, the Bloolips and the Cockettes, which were drag communes in the 1960s and 70s that were very much part of the gay liberation front.
There was loads of empty shops all around Brighton, and it's like just the thought of like what is going to fill these spaces on the high street, and we were kind of thinking, how would our queer ancestors have approached this problem?
They really wanted to make work which looked at this kind of pop-up commune. And then when I started to make the work, one of the first things I looked at was the idea of a day in the life of what would happen in a typical day with a group of artists that squat in a shop and take LSD. And then of course we've got the design and all the costumes and the makeup, which became really integral into the overall kind of energy and aesthetic of the work.
We knew as soon as we got the site that we eventually ended up in the shop, which was a very bijou space, we knew that the only way to really work with that was to make it a completely immersive experience for the audience. Starting in a familiar location, and that's the Marlborough or Met at our theatre, and we walked them around the corner onto St James's Street.
And I think it succeeded in actually making people feel that they were all of a sudden somewhere else in a dreamland or a forgotten era. We purposely didn't have it as a sit-down experience where you sit in chairs. We didn't want anything to be too familiar. It was really, I think, special to kind of remove the idea of a stage. The stage was the whole space.
We've been looking and talking a lot about our relationship to the audience because they are so close and they're so important. What is our relationship as a company to these people?
The way that I saw it was that you were kind of like fully in the room as an audience member, but then you were also partly invisible. There was a kind of this mix of the two.
There's a kind of fluidity to it, so they're acknowledged but it's kind of smoky. And then there's other sections where the performers go and dance with them and move with them, and they become really present.
The performers are going to touch you, and that's part of it. It's something that's not necessarily for the faint-hearted.
By the end of the show, they're all sat on the floor and they're very relaxed, and a lot of the audience say they don't want to leave the building, they just want to stay here. So the feedback we've had has been really quite brilliant.
Although that's the really exciting thing about this piece, and what we hope to do with it in future, is that I think the way it being site-specific or site-responsive is that I would love to put it in a location that doesn't have a position in the community in the same way as Jennifer's shop. I would love to see how it feels in a different space, in a different town, and I really hope we get the opportunity to make that happen. It's not in a traditional theatre space, so it's not mediated necessarily by having access to an arts building.
It's a happening somehow, and as from tomorrow it'll no longer be a happening, it'll have gone. And that's really beautiful for me, that feels very magical. And the people that will come and see the show will have witnessed something very special, unique, and something that they might never see again. And I kind of really like that about the pop-up idea.